The Forgotten Spark, A Tale of Young Thales. It was a bright autumn morning, and little Carlos couldn't stop tapping his feet beneath his tiny desk. His new shoes, a bit too big and squeaky, echoed with each excited bounce. The scent of freshly sharpened pencils, warm dust, and chalk filled the classroom like the aroma of some ancient temple. This was no ordinary day. It was his first day in elementary school. But for Carlos, this day meant more than meeting new friends or getting used to schedules and lunchboxes. What thrilled him most was the special class he'd been selected for. Geometric drawing for the gifted youngs. While other children giggled over finger paints and alphabet games, Carlos had spent his toddler years drawing triangles and tracing circles around his mother's cooking pots. Geometry was not just a subject to him. It was a language, a form of music where each shape sang a silent harmony, while numbers weren't just symbols. They were alive, dancing in patterns that made his chest flutter with inexplicable joy. And today, finally, he would begin learning it formally. The classroom had no toys or posters of cartoon animals. Instead, a vast blackboard loomed before them like a dark abyss waiting to be filled with precision and beauty. The teacher, Mr. Levi, an old man with rimless glasses and fingers chalk-stained from 1,000 prior lectures, introduced himself very formally. Without preamble, Mr. Levi turned his back to the class and drew a triangle on the board, sharp, simple, and clean. Carlos leaned forward, eyes wide. The professor then drew a line parallel to one of the triangle's sides, cutting across the figure and forming a smaller triangle within. That was when it happened. Something clicked. Carlos's heart raced. He saw it, not just saw it, felt it. The smaller triangle was perfectly similar to the first. The angles, the proportions, it was all there, shimmering before his eyes like an unveiling of a cosmic truth. In that instant, the dusty classroom vanished. The walls dissolved. He was standing on the shores of mathematical infinity, a tiny mind brushing against eternal symmetries. He shot up his hand, nearly knocking over his pencil case. "Professor," he blurted, face flushed with revelation. "The triangles, they're equal. They have the same shape, the same angles. Look, it's..." But the professor did not turn around. He did not even pause to acknowledge Carlos's trembling hand. "And this," the professor continued, voice deep and droning, "was first discovered by Thales of Miletus, one of the 7 sages of ancient Greece, more than 2,500 years ago." Carlos froze. "Thales who?" He sat down, slowly. He had never heard the name before, but it tasted bitter already. The teacher kept talking, weaving the tale of how Thales used his triangle trick to measure the height of a pyramid. The other students listened quietly, their attention floating somewhere between the board and their crayons. But Carlos sat paralyzed, heart sinking. The thing he had just discovered, in that electric moment of insight, had already been found. Named. Taught. Relegated to a story told by rote. The excitement drained from his face. His hand dropped to his lap. He stared at the chalkboard, now just a triangle, just a line. Just another relic of a world where all the best ideas had already been claimed by ancient men with beards and scrolls. He felt like an explorer who had reached the edge of the map, only to find a plaque reading, "Already discovered." Try again. A strange thought came to him then, far too mature for a child his age. I was born too late. Had he lived in a different time, in a different place, maybe his insight would have mattered. Maybe his name could have entered the lineage of minds that carved knowledge into the bones of the universe. Maybe, just maybe, he would be remembered. But not here. Not now. Something inside Carlos shifted that day, not broken, but dampened. The infinite garden of geometry, once lush and inviting, now seemed pre-mapped, paved over with plaques and monuments to the past. The epiphany that had lit up his mind like fireworks faded into a quiet ache. He didn't cry. He simply stopped tapping his feet. He sharpened no more pencils. He answered no more questions. Years would pass, and Carlos would learn other things. He would still excel in mathematics, would still find comfort in numbers and logic. But the wild joy of discovery, the intoxicating belief that he might glimpse something no one had ever seen before, that died quietly in a classroom on an ordinary Monday, buried beneath the weight of ages of mathematical history. Years later, when people asked why he'd chosen law over mathematics despite his obvious gift with numbers, Carlos would smile and say he preferred laws that could be changed and fixed. He never mentioned the afternoon when he learned that all the best discoveries had already been made, or the way that knowledge had settled into his chest like a stone. Some dreams, he discovered, were too fragile to survive the weight of history. But sometimes, late at night when he couldn't sleep, he would remember that moment of pure insight. The electric instant when the pattern revealed itself, when the universe seemed to whisper its secrets directly into his 7-year-old mind. And in those moments, before sleep claimed him, he would almost believe again that there were still wonders waiting to be found.